So I've been digging and trying to find a little bit about Jock's backgrounds, and it's quite interesting to hear what you were doing over your summer holidays, herding. Is it herding cattle? Was it ranching cattle?
I have no idea what it was. I was on a horse going around cattle.
yeah, and that was in Canada. What other people might not know is that Jock also played rugby for Scotland.
Long time ago.
Way back in, I think your most famous match was 1973? Or
my only matches were in 1973. I was lucky enough to play that one season. I played 3 games that one season.
Right, yeah. But now you're a non-executive director with Scottish Rugby?
I was non-exec director for between 2006 and 2013. And partway through that, our chief exec left overnight, and I stood up to be the chief exec for 6 months, which was quite challenging because I was at that time setting up Equity Gap at the same time.
We are quite fortunate that this Thursday evening doesn't clash with the rugby club dinners.
Yes, absolutely.
That you are
quite often go to.
Yeah, committed to. And so you've been a director with Equity Gap since 2010 and the chair at LINC Scotland since 2013.
Yes.
And that's obviously quite a big commitment to entrepreneurship and angel investing in Scotland. Yeah. So you obviously have seen quite a lot of things over that time. But I'm interested in also in how you got to this stage today.
Right.
So did you start off as an entrepreneur yourself?
No, I started off trained initially, got a degree in chemical engineering and then a second degree in malting and brewing, and became a brewer. And worked in the brewing industry for 33 years, half of it in production as a brewer, working on the production and packaging side, and then moving on to the operations and logistics side. I worked mainly with Scottish and Newcastle, 30 years with them, and when they bought Courage in the early 1990s, I put the 2 supply chains together when I was in the logistics operation. But come 2006, I was at that time I'd been travelling almost every day mainly across the UK, but also across Europe. Some were different almost every day, and I was got fed up with after about 3 years of doing that all the time. So I decided I was going to leave, and I did, and I set up a small consultancy, which was essentially myself, Millican Associates, and initially did some work with some medium-sized businesses in Scotland. Companies like Walker's Shortbread and that, but more and more started working with SMEs and startups. And there was 2 startups that I decided that I would get involved in, and they asked me if I would invest in them and if I would become a director. And I did, and that was back in 2007, 2008. I soon realised that I would not be able to do all these investments. They were relatively small investments, I would have to say at the beginning. But I realised very soon that I, needed to be working with other people if I was going to do anything meaningful in the area. And I took some time. I took from 2008 to 2010. I looked at the other angel syndicates that were about at that time in Scotland and went to some of their meetings. Certainly had discussions with quite a number of them. And at the end of it, I decided there was space for another angel syndicate, and that were operated slightly differently to what the other ones did. And hence I set up Equity Gap back in 2010. We started in August 2010 was our first meeting, and so we've been going 9 years, and that was in 2011 was the year when I was asked to be 6 months to be the chief exec of Scottish Rugby Union. So it did cause some problems in terms of the startup of the equity gap. But we also we started with 15 members. There were 15 people that I knew, and the first month when we got our pitches, I went to find 2 companies to do the pitches, and I found the first 15 members. But since then, I have never gone out to find a company and never gone out to find a member, because they found me.
So where did you go to look for companies and then?
Oh well, I mean, I had a contact with LINC at that stage. LINC, they came through LINC, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was where I got that, and the individuals were people I'd either worked with or people I'd come across that I thought might be interested in it. So, but they then got their friends and colleagues in, and we've picked up through companies like MBM. We occasionally get referrals from individuals who are interested in being involved in angel groups.
So did you have a pitch deck for the people for Equity Gap in the beginning that you showed to your 15 friends?
I had an idea. I had some ideas as to what it was, the important things, I think, for being a business angel is that you've got an opportunity to invest in early stage, high potential, potentially high growth, but also very high risk businesses. But more importantly, I think you've got an opportunity to put something back into the business, back into the industries, with your knowledge that you've had of running businesses or being part of businesses. And that's where, to be honest, most business angels get the most satisfaction out of, is actually being able to put something back in. That's the fun bit. Putting my capital in, I mean, if you just want to invest capital, there's much safer ways and much more reliable ways of making your capital grow. Maybe not, there is huge big successes that you occasionally hear about, the sky scanners and things like that. But for all of them that you're hearing about, we reckon that for every 10 companies that we invest in, that at least 4 are going to go bust. 4 we might get our money back, and 2 will make a good return. So,
a good enough return to cover all the other losses.
One hopes so. One hopes there's maybe even more than cover the losses. But it is. I think if you talk to any angel investor who's been in for a period of time over a number of companies, I don't think they'll be saying that they made a huge amount of money at the end of the day. Hopefully they've made some money, and hopefully they've not lost overall. But our first investment as Equity Gap went bust after 18 months. It was 2 founders. They fell out with each other and decided they couldn't work with each other anymore. So we engineered one to leave the company, and we managed to recruit somebody to replace him. But the original founder then said he didn't think he could work with him either. So we ended up selling the IP, and we made a loss on the first investment. So it wasn't a good start.
But you didn't give up?
No, we didn't give up.
I guess you had made some other investments over those 18 months.
We made a few, although in the early days, the first 6 months we did not invest at all, because I wanted people to get used to seeing the companies and seeing what a stage they were at, because a lot of these people that are initial investors that I got involved had worked in corporate life, and one of them I remember coming and saying, well, let me see 10 years P&L, and then we'll see whether we're going to do something. I said, you'll get to see next year's forecast, and that's it. So people had to. I was very concerned that people understood exactly what they were getting themselves into, and they understood what they needed to look at, and it was, it's a totally different way of assessing an early stage startup company than you do from an established company. The early stage companies are we reckon at least 60% is about the people, and are these people the ones that are going to succeed, because they're the ones that are going to take the company forward for the first couple of years, at least, probably longer, but at least the first couple of years. And are they people that you can put your trust in? And are they people that know enough about not just about the product, but about the market as well? And I think that's one of the other early lessons that we found was that, people could be really experts on their product and their technologies and everything else, but if they didn't understand the market for the business, then it was unlikely that they were going to succeed. So that was a very important area that we needed to be sure of. And sometimes, the individual that has the idea about the business, he's not the right person to take it forward. And sometimes people recognise that early on, but more often than not, people recognise it at a later stage. And it's much more difficult to make a change at that stage. Saying, well, you're maybe not the right person to be the CEO, maybe you should be the CTO. So it's one of the things that we concentrate on much more importantly at an earlier stage. Is there someone within the business, not necessarily the CEO, but is there someone within the business that understands the commercial aspects of the product or service that we've got there?
So how many investments has Equity Gap made over the years now then?
We've invested in 30 companies.
Wow, that's quite a lot.
That is a lot, yes.
And what kind of companies are they? Can you tell us a bit about your thesis?
Each year we ask our members if they would like to concentrate on a particular sector or whatever, but each year they've come back to me and said, no, we want to look at everything. So we describe ourselves as sector agnostic. We're happy to look at everything or anything and see what opportunities there are there. So we've got a huge variety of businesses within our portfolio. We've got a small brewery. We've got a couple of small pharma companies. We've got heat batteries. We've got a number of software businesses and software as a service businesses. So we cover quite a range of products and services. Yes.
And are you looking for more members to join Equity Gap?
We're always happy to look for more members. We've got about 160 at the moment. But we're happy for people to join us and come in and some of our members have come in and they've invested in one or two companies only. I've got one who's started with me at the early stage, and he's invested in every one of the companies. He's taken the portfolio idea just to say that there's a good chance that at least some of them will be successful. So yeah. But others just decide it's either a sector they understand or it's a product or service that excites them and gives them an interest. So, yeah. And that's what they do. So.
And what is it that you think attracts people to Equity Gap compared to the other angel syndicates?
Well, I think there's some slight differences in the way that we operate. We're probably slightly more democratic than some of the others, and some of the others, because of their structure. Par Equity, for example, have a fund, and they have essentially a number of fund managers that will make decisions as to which companies they look at and such like. Archangel are set up that they have a small group of 5 who initially make the decision as to which companies to look at. But in fairness, that 5 also commit to put in the first 100K. So it's not without some input there. we decided that we'd let the members decide which companies we would look at. So at each of our monthly meetings, we put forward the companies who have approached us in the last month, and we've got a web platform that we use where the companies put up their basic information, at our monthly meeting, the members then make the decision, and it's just a straight. If we're looking for 2 companies to pitch the following month, each member has 2 votes. They will give 2 votes, and they can either, if they're there at the meeting, they'll do it physically. If they're not there at the meeting, they can do it online on the web platform. So, and that's how we make our decisions as to which ones to take forward. It probably is slightly unscientific, and there's probably, if it's a renewable one and somebody within the room has got with renewable expertise talks to it, it might be more influenced than some of the others. But ultimately, these are the people that are going to put their money into it. So therefore, we allow them to make their decisions as to which ones to look at.
Okay, and so for the people people who are thinking about joining Equity Gap as an angel investor, what kind of profile do they have for you? How do you identify or know when you're talking to someone who's would be a good member for Equity Gap?
Well, we're looking for people that are willing to work with us, help our companies where possible. Mentoring, or quite often we've got companies who need a name and a commercial contact. So, would our members be able to make an introduction to, we've had one recently that needed an introduction into Diageo. Did we have a contact in Diageo that they could go and speak to? So one of our members was able to do that, make that introduction and help that company. So sometimes it's mentoring, sometimes it will be doing a project. We had one about 3 years ago that really needed to have their marketing strategy re-looked at. And we got 5 of our members who had marketing backgrounds, some in the sector, some not in the sector. And they sat down with the company for, I think, 3 mornings and developed a new marketing strategy, which the company then went to implement. So It depends on just what the input will be. There's others that will be investor directors that sit on the board and work with the company and help, give feedback to us and feedback the other way.
Sure.
So there's others that will go in and do individual mentoring. So it really depends on what the need is from the company as to whether we can do it. We also try and encourage where possible some of for example, with a number of our SaaS companies, the software as a service companies, we've one of our members is very experienced in that area, and he's been holding some workshops with them collectively to see, because there are some commonalities in terms of how they should be approaching the markets and things like that.
Yeah.
That's been quite helpful, but it's also helped the companies introduce themselves to each other, and they've learned from each other. So sometimes it's doing things like that.
Sure. So if someone is interested in joining Equity Gap, how would they go about that? Is it through the website or?
Well, and there's an application pack on the website and such like, but and there's contacts on the website. We like to meet everybody that's going to join, and we'd like to meet them and have a discussion with them and just make sure that, one, they understand what they're getting into and what the risks are, because the last thing I want is somebody not sleeping because they've invested 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever into a company, and they worry about it and worry about losing it. If you're prepared to invest money in the angel investment scene, you've got to be prepared to lose it and not lose sleep over that, because that's the last thing you want to do.
So it's a bit like to use your disposable, not income, but your disposable savings,
Well,
or your disposable assets. Or
well, it's whether people actually are comfortable with saying these are disposable. Some people are not comfortable with taking a risk with their capital, and that's very understandable, and they should not be getting into that market.
Yeah.
If they are comfortable with taking a small part of their disposable income, then that's okay.
But the companies that you invest in, are they SEIS and have SEIS advanced approval, EIS advanced approval as well?
They all have at least EIS. Whether they're at the stage that when we invest in them that they've still got SEIS available, it varies. But we've one who we've recently invested in who did have SEIS available, but they wanted it to use it to get some grants, which we actually agreed with, so we just invested through EIS and not SEIS.
Right. Okay.
Because the SEIS is subject to a de minimis amount of 200,000 euros, and if it's got to be, if you get certain grants, that comes off that as well.
Yeah, affects the investor.
Yeah.
Okay. So the people who are thinking about becoming angel investors, how do they find out about this opportunity? Is it from their financial advisor? Is it through the media or their own networks?
I think it's through a number of different ways, and it's one of the ways that it's one of the roles and purposes of LINC, for example, is to if individuals are interested in angel investing, they quite often contact LINC to understand more about it, and then LINC will put them in touch with normally one or two angel groups where they can go and have a look and see which one suits them best. Because LINC there's about 20 angel groups across Scotland. Some of them are geographically situated. There's one in Inverness, there's one in Aberdeen, there's one in Stirling, there's two in Stirling, there's one down in the Borders, one in Ayrshire, there's obviously 3 or 4 in Edinburgh and 3 or 4 in Glasgow. So, it varies, and some of them are sector specific, and some of them are more widely viewed, things like ourselves. So, but equally, it tends not to be financial advisors who advise them, because a prudent financial advisor would probably say you shouldn't be putting money into angel investing. It's too risky. So I'd be surprised if they were. But we do occasionally get referrals from accountants and from lawyers, and we've had some from MBM, for example, and MBM probably, of all the lawyers in the early stage, they're probably the main lawyer in early stage business in Scotland, and they're so they've got a good idea of all the different angel networks. People would be suitable for which ones.
And their experience, and their on his I mean, Sandy Finlayson has a tremendous experience, and has seen many good and bad situations. And
and I mean, Sandy was there when Archangel started. Archangel started back in 1992, and Sandy helped to Sandy Finlayson, who was the senior partner here, is now I think chairman or something. He's moved a step up. He's half retired, but he was the one that helped to put the first investment agreement together for Archangel with their first investment, and that then moved on to become the forerunner of what we now know as the standard investment documents that we use in Scotland, which again was a LINC initiative back in the early 2000s, and they pulled together a standard set of documents that were acceptable to the main lawyers and to Scottish Enterprise, who were a key factor in there. So, and that saved a huge amount of legal fees in terms of what it was.
But I do believe they also helped pave the way for the FCA to be happy with angel investors and angel syndicates as well.
To a degree. FCA will not give a definitive to say that they're absolutely happy with angel syndicates and angel groups. They have said informally that that's the case, but they'll not give a ruling as such.
In black and white.
No. And there are some very fine lines. I mean, we cannot recommend an investment. As a gatekeeper, I certainly can't recommend an investment to my group. I can present it to them. I can get someone along to pitch and such like, but at the end of the day, I cannot say to them, this is a good investment.
Sure. Well, before we move on to our pitches tonight, perhaps you could tell us what, through your experience over the years, what patterns you see or what signals entrepreneurs give that you think that they're a good team, or that they might stand a good chance of being successful?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I think we would put the three top priorities that we're looking at as three, maybe four. What is the market? Is there market potential for what we're talking about? Is it a sizable market that we're looking at? So, because we're looking for high growth companies, and if it's a small marketplace, then it's not going to be a high growth business. So, is it going to be a high growth business? Secondly, we're looking at the people, and we do quite a stringent review of what are the people capable of running a business. Do they know what they're about in terms of that? What is their experiences up until now, or what if and it's not necessarily that they have to have experiences running a business, but have they got someone in there that can help to run a business? One of our first companies that came to pitch, I think within the first 6 months, we told them when they came to pitch that, one, to go away and find an accountant because their numbers didn't add up, literally on the presentation page, and secondly, to go away and find a grey hair, and by that we meant go away and find someone with experience in running a business. 6 months later, they came back with the grey hair, and they'd got Johnston Carmichael to do their account or their figures, and we invested in them. So, it does make a difference, that. So it's not, and the person who's running that business had not run a business before. We didn't expect her to have that experience, but we needed to be comfortable that she had someone round about her that could help on that front. And I think the next thing that we're looking at is what is the route? What is your route to market? We're not exclusively a business-to-business group. There's some of the angel groups that will only look at business-to-business opportunities. But how are you going to get to the marketplace, particularly if it's consumer? What is the way, and putting it up on a website is not what you're going to achieve. Most people understand that, to be fair, but we have had some just saying, well, we'll create a website and people will find it there. That doesn't happen. You've got to have an idea as to what it is, and it's people at least recognising the issues and the problems of doing that. They might not have all the answers, but at least we're looking at that early stage that they at least understand that there's issues there. And fourth, we would put in what is it? The product, the service. So we'll worry about, and if we like the things up above, then we'll look at in detail what the thing is about. Because we would expect the company to be coming to us with potential for if it's a product, if there's potential for patenting it. If it's something that's we're looking for selling to customers, trademarks, we're looking for these sort of things to have been put in place and all the rest of it. But we want to understand the other bits first of all: the market, the people, the route to market, and then the product. Because it's almost slightly different than what you would expect. We're not looking initially what the product is. If you understand the other bits, and it's inevitable when you're talking to somebody that you're going to find out about the product fairly early on, or product or service fairly early on. But in assessing the company, that would be the order that we would put them in.
Okay, great. I really appreciate you telling us and making it very clear for any entrepreneur who's interested in approaching Equity Gap as well. So we have a chance for a few questions before we close this fireside chat. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask?
So just following up with what you're looking for in companies, and also keeping in mind that Equity Gap, as you said, is quite industry agnostic, which I like that term. Obviously, certain sectors will have different levels of technology in terms of complexity. So, as you mentioned, you look at things in the food and drink industry, and also some pharma ones as well. And in terms of complexity, they're different. So, on the technical side, how do you? What sort of things do you look at for those two types of investments?
Well, I mean, if it is a technical product and such like, we will quite often use, we've got some IP lawyers that we will use to check and see the background of it. We would, out of the 160 members, we can cover most industries, not all of them, but again, we would initially look to our members to do some diligence on the product. Get some details there. If it's a spin out from a university, we'd be looking to be discussing it with the university to understand what the technology is behind it and how sustainable it is and that sort of thing. So there are a number of areas there that we would go into quite a bit of depth. But in fairness, we don't go into that depth. We would get our individual member to have a look and give us some feedback on the product and such like. But if we decide to invest in it, then we will start to do the detailed due diligence. We will do the diligence with, we'll get our IP lawyer involved at that stage. We will start to look to talk to the university about it and such like. There is some things coming out of universities normally have some good providence coming out of there, but sometimes it's the deal that the university wants to do. We've got one at the moment that we're looking at where the university are looking for a very high equity stake and a licensing agreement on top of it, and we think it's just commercially unviable in terms of what they're looking at. So we're having a bigger discussion with the university than we are with the company, to be honest.
Wow, that's a problem. Any other questions, Fraser?
So the world, from an investment perspective, I get the feeling that everybody's interested in sexy things that are going to give 10x and be $1 billion business. And all the investors I sort of talk to are really interested in the sexy stuff and all the pitches sort of go around it. What about, you're running a startup that's a good old-fashioned business that's doing something that's pretty simple but has the potential to scale. I mean, what advice would you give to pitching that and framing
well,
that in today's
we've,
environment?
I mean,
it's not sexy, you know?
you could argue that the brewery that we've invested in, I wouldn't say it's been, that sort of industry's been around for a long time. So, I think with these types of businesses, we're looking to understand what is the thing that differentiates what their product is compared to others. And the reason that we went for the brewery, for example, was they do gluten-free beer. And therefore there's a niche in the market that for that product and that type of thing. And that was the reason that we decided. So what differentiates you from the rest of the people? Because you're going to have to fight much harder than the unique product that some of the other things are talking about. So you've got to be making your case. I'm different because of X, Y, and Z, and people will buy my product because of X, Y, and Z. So that's the most important difference that I would say we'll be looking at. Plus, we would not be anticipating as big a multiple in terms of an exit from that. But on the other hand, we're probably more sure that would happen than with the high risk ones. So it's always a balance of risk and reward that you're going to get there. So.
Good. Thanks for that question. It's very good. Anybody else have one last question maybe?
Dried up.
Well, obviously you can ask Jock your questions after the in the final networking part of the event, if you don't want to ask it in public. But thank you, Jock, for
thank you
for your advice and.